Today we're going to do the top 5 worst anime endings I have ever seen. Now to qualify for this list, we're going to not choose any easy targets. That means if the anime is bad and has a bad ending, then who cares? The anime is bad, you know? I don't care how School Days ends. Well, okay, School Days has a funny ending, but I don't care, you know? That's not going to affect me at all, you know? It's when you're invested in the show because it's so good and then the ending just completely kicks you out of all that investment. Those are the shows we're going to tackle today. So for 1, it has to be good. For 2, it has to be the actual ending of the show. There can't be it's not the ending of season 1, the ending of season 2. It's got to be the actual ending of the show. There can't be anything else that comes after it. And unless it's like maybe an OVA or something, but in which case we're just going to stick to the television endings to shows. Because, you know, we could talk about a poor way that season 1 ended, but who really cares? Because it could make up for it in the next season. Also, I'm only going to target really shows that are more centered on the story and the drama. Because, I know a lot of people hate the ending of Soul Eater because it's so cheesy, because it's so, you know, just ridiculous, you know? But to be quite honest, in Soul Eater, it's not that disappointing for me. I can't really say it's that disappointing of an ending because that's just the kind of show Soul Eater is. It's over the top and kind of shonen-y and ridiculous. So, you know, it's not a show you're really invested in towards getting a really good ending, and most shonen shows are not going to give you a very good ending anyway. Hey, but the story doesn't really break because of it, you know? You can still go back and watch Soul Eater and enjoy it, but some of these shows, if I go back and watch them enough and I know what ending's coming, it's just like, I can't enjoy them anymore because it's all ruined for me. And I mean, with some level of forgiveness, I try to forgive, even if I know some people are more about the journey than the answer that you're given at the end. But I've said it before, but the journey has to be good and the ending has to be good because you need a good last impression, at least for people like me. I know it doesn't bother everyone. You need a good last impression because that's what you're going to think about when you think about the show. You're going to think about, well, what did I think about that show? Oh yeah, it ended off on a really crappy note. And then you're not going to care about it anymore. And you're going to be like, well, where's my motivation to watch it again? So to kick off this list, I'm going to list the anime, but I will pause for a second in case you don't want to be spoiled. I will title the anime and then pause because I know not everyone wants to get spoiled in case they haven't watched the show, but just know that I was very disappointed by the ending. Now, some people might think these endings are okay. That's fine. That's more power to you if you enjoyed them. These are just 5 endings I personally couldn't stand in the shows I watched, and they really detrimented my enjoyment. Number 5 is Kimi Kiss Pure Rouge. This is a drama romance anime, and you're like, oh my god, how could this... So obviously it's got to have a bad shipping ending, and yes, you are correct, it's got a bad shipping ending. And that's the reason I list this, is because it's actually done a lot better than most drama romance shows that are like it. You know, most drama romance shows in anime are just freaking horrible these days, you know? They're horrible, but this one is actually half decent for the most part. It takes itself seriously. It's paced at a, you know, slow but believable pace, and the characters are, you know, relatively likable. Oh, you have 2 love triangles, and the way the show ends is it settles one okay, and then it settles one just absolutely terribly. And that's because we have our main character, Koichi, who is probably one of the most unlikable main characters you could ever imagine. I swear to God, I will be shocked if you guys don't hate this character if you ever watch this anime. You could argue that he's a believable teen or whatever, but to me, he's just so pathetic and so whiny over really nothing, quite honestly. And I guess that's what some people do. So I guess it's somewhat realistic, but quite honestly, it is not endearing to watch, especially when none of the other characters are really like that. But he's going out with his girlfriend for a good long time. And, you know, this is a girl that he's attached to some degree. He gets along with. He has better chemistry with her than the girl he ends up with. And yet, the show at the last second decides, oh no, I never loved her. I loved my, you know, childhood friend the whole time because of reasons, you know, I don't even have that much chemistry, and the only reason it ever gives you is because she's just that damn beautiful. And it's like, well, of course, since she's so attractive, she could never, ever win against that. And this is the same problem True Tears has, but True Tears' ending is a little bit better. It's still very bad, if you ask me. But I will give Kimi Kiss the king of bad drama endings because they don't have any chemistry. The girl he ends up with, and he ends up with her on the last episode in the last 3 minutes. And nothing else comes out of it. Nothing. It just ends, and they accept it, and they go on, and his girlfriend's just like, okay, and then leaves. It's just trash. It's rushed, it's trashed, and it's impossible to believe. It's a terrible ending and a terrible way to end an otherwise good show. It actually had a really good atmosphere and all that. And it did have believable couples. Like, the girl, Mao, that he ended up going out with at the end should have ended up with the saxophone player, because they had more chemistry than Koichi and her had. Just, you know, this is the only choice that's like this, and I hate to put a shipper choice on it, and I don't really ship that high in this show, but this isn't really a show to ship for. It's just a show where the romance just wasn't believable at all, and the ending just was not satisfying in the slightest. Number 4, man, do I hate to say this, but Full Metal Alchemist. The first version of it. Not Brotherhood, the first version of it. Now, Full Metal Alchemist does a lot of things better than Brotherhood. For example, Nina's character. You're much more attached to Nina in the original. Maze Hughes, you're much more attached to Maze Hughes in the original. And therefore, when they die, it's a lot more effective. But the problem with this show is the last, 8 or so episodes. They just didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how to end it, so they rushed everything. And the ending just comes out of left field. It seems to come out of nowhere. Like, there's freaking alchemy is coming from another world, so the energy has to come from somewhere else, so it comes from our world in another timeline? What the heck? This is not really hinted at anywhere in the show. And it just seems like a ridiculous way to have a movie spinoff so that the movie spinoff can seem epic. And it's just so unsatisfying of a conclusion. Not to mention, the last villain is really, really dull in comparison to, say, they should have just had the last villain be the Führer, because he's especially in Brotherhood, he's awesome, but Dante she wasn't that compelling of a villain ever, Not that she didn't have any potential, but they really didn't do anything with her. And then you get this conclusion where Ed and Al are separated, which I would be okay with, but they just kind of threw it at you. Like in the last 2 episodes, they brought the existence of this other world into play. Maybe it was even the last episode, And it just seems so out of left field, and it just seemed random. I mean, it's possible there was a hint of it, but, and there are other anime original ideas that I didn't mind, like, say, the change of Wrath's character and the change of Sloth's character. Those were fine, but this is just crap. This is so rushed and unbelievable, and it just sucks. And I can guarantee almost everyone prefers Brotherhood's ending to this, and as they should, because Brothers' endings is really epic and really awesome, and it's built up believably to it, and that's why Brotherhood is better than Full Metal Alchemist. Though, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say you should never watch the original version of Full Metal Alchemist, because it does do a few things better than Brotherhood. And, and just for those, it's still a really good anime. It's still much better than the majority of anime out there. It's just with this ending, it really painfully brings me down, because I'm like, why didn't they spend more time on this? Why'd they have all these filler episodes? They could have devoted that time to make a more believable ending. Not to say those filler episodes were even bad per se, but I would have preferred them be taken out for a better ending. So unfortunately, Full Metal Alchemist does leave a bad taste in your mouth, and don't even get me started on that movie, even though it was at least something compared to the anime TV series ending, it still wasn't a very satisfying ending at all. Number 3 is Berserk. God dang it, Berserk. Why couldn't you have just been 1 episode longer? At least, for the love of God, could you have at least ended with the eclipse ending, you know? And eventually, movie 3 of Berserk comes out like 18 years later and ends at the proper place to end the series, but for the longest time, it was just, oh, that's it, go read the manga now, we ran out of budget, or something like that. I don't even know what happened. Apparently this was supposed to be 2 seasons, and it just happened. And for that matter, every ending where the show just stops, because of reasons. Maybe they caught up to the manga, and they're like, oh crap, we caught up to the manga, we got no more content, well guess we'll have to end it. And that happens more times than you would really like to believe, and it's very depressing. But that's how that goes, and Berserk it just crushes your soul, because the show is so darn good, and much better than the movies. The animation hasn't aged well, and the art hasn't aged well, but it's still very solid. Characterization's awesome. It slows down the pacing to flesh those characters out from the movies, because that's the main problem with the movies compared to the anime, is that the characters aren't quite as fleshed out. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed the movies despite the crappy 3D and the kind of rushed pacing, but, it just wasn't as good as the original anime. And the all they needed to do was make it 1 more episode. I mean, the fact that they just end with Guts yelling, ah! Like, ah! And that's the exact reaction you're going to have with the ending once you realize that's it. So in a way, this ending is artistically beautiful because it ends on the exact same note you will be feeling. And don't get me wrong, I am not bashing the Eclipse. The Eclipse is legendary for a reason, because it's that darn good. And this whole anime is that darn good. This is the only complaint with the anime. It's a huge complaint, and it will probably prevent a lot of people from watching it again. I've watched it probably like 7 times, so I guess it didn't bother me enough. But, I watched it when I was like 11, so I guess those endings didn't really bother me back in the day. But on the overall, any kind of ending that just stops is just, you know how that feels. You guys know it. You've experienced it yourselves. It's a terrible feeling when once you realize, wait, that was the last episode? Are you kidding me? There isn't any more? The story's not done. And then there's no more. And you have to read the manga or something. And which stinks, because some people like reading manga and some people like just watching the anime. And I prefer a lot of the times just watching the anime. There's sometimes I like reading a manga, but Berserk is also a painful manga to follow too, because of how slow the author releases. He's a great author, good stuff, but god dang, he's not consistent enough. And it's, this Berserk is still not over even after like 20 years, almost going to 30, and it's hard to keep up with it. It's hard to be motivated to read it. The initial drive to read it is kind of suspended at the moment with me. Number 2, Clannad After Story. Now, I'm not going to be like everyone else. I'm not going to say the ending is a Deus Ex Machina, because it's not. It was built up into some regard. They did talk about this imaginary world. They've hinted at it. I mean, they've shown you this imaginary world. They've talked about it with Kotomi. Nagisa's dad was able to bring her to the forest, and the town was able to heal Nagisa. So obviously some healing otherworldly property did exist in this world, but they never really told you what the rules of this were. They never really explained it very well. They were just like, well, this is a magical thing. What can it do? Basically anything. Well, that's cool. But that's not really the complaint here. Some people might hate it because of that, but you gotta realize the show did show you it to some degree. The problem is, it's unnecessary. That's the main problem with it. It's unnecessary to resurrect Nagisa, to put Tomiya all the way back, to revert. Well, I guess his character development it's really never made clear, but I guess his character development sort of stays. And he goes all the way back to Nagisa so he can live with Nagisa and Ushio. Why? Why was it necessary to even do that? He was already living happily with Ushio. What was the problem, I mean, the thing was that, he wasn't, Tomiya, him and Nagisa, he was too dependent on Nagisa to be himself, to be a happy person. That was his problem, He was too dependent on the happiness of one person. He wasn't able to just find his own happiness or whatever. And this ending kind of defeats that in a way, because you saw that he developed in episode 18, one of the best episodes in anime history. It's such a good episode. And you saw him develop and realize that he was flawed for, neglecting Ushio, and that he really, shouldn't have let his sadness overcome him and just ignore her completely. And then he lives happily with Ushio, and you see him overcome that sadness with her. So why giving Ushio the illness was completely uncalled for one thing. What's the problem? He's developed. Tomiya's developed. There was no point in trolling him again for Ushio to die in front of him. That was completely pointless. It just made it seem like the town was being mean to him for the sake of, oh, you needed to realize that you actually never wanted to abandon Nagisa. In which case, okay, fine. He needed to realize he never wanted to abandon Nagisa because that thought process was running through his head, because he's like, it would have been better if we never met. And so he needed to realize, yes, it was fine for us to meet, and that's okay, but that was already pretty much understood when he was being happy with Ushio. Of course he would feel like crap after Ushio died and think like that, because seriously, when you lose your lover and then a few years later you're getting your life back on track after recuperating from your wife's loss, you lose your daughter, and then she dies too? And of course, it's like, what do you expect from the guy? He's not had the best life, okay? Him and his dad, they haven't had the best life, okay? It just feels like, oh, well, good, you finally realized that. We'll reward you. Snap of the hands, okay, you're back. Good job, Tomiya, I'm glad you learned your lesson. And it just, I know that's probably not even the point the anime was trying to make, but that's what it seems like. It's like, you know what, it would have been much better, just resurrect Ushio on the spot. Or much better, just don't even get Ushio sick, because it's unnecessary to go all the way back to Nagisa. He already learned to deal without her. The audience had already moved on. All it seemed to be was just a happy-go-lucky ending so that that everything can be perfect at the end. And that's unnecessary. You don't need it to be perfect. Jun Maeda, grow a set of balls, for the love of God. Seriously. You do this way too often. Or Key does this way too often, not just Jun Maeda. I know sad endings are a downer, but seriously, this wasn't even gonna be that sad. Really, would it have been that bad for Tomiya to just end up with Ushio at the end and live happily and raise her happily? I mean, seriously, who would complain about that? I mean, it would be kind of a bummer for Nagisa to be dead, but it's not necessary to bring her back, especially after it's been 6 episodes since she was dead. We've, especially with this kind of series, we've kind of grown accustomed to it. We've kind of come to terms that, yes, it's tragic, but she's dead, but hey, Tomiya's living happily. It's fine, and that would have been a perfect way to end the show. Oh, this show that you can still overcome loss through family. And that's pretty much what the show is about. But this sense that the show had to reward Tomiya with this and had to troll him once again with Ushio's death was, don't get me wrong, Ushio's death was very tragic and well done scene, but it was unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. I don't know why the show chose, I can sort of gasp why they chose to do it, but it wasn't done well. And when I look back at it, it seems like the last 6 episodes were pointless, and those were the best parts of the show. And it makes a lot of after stories seem pointless, because it's just like, well, he's just going to get rewarded at the end, everything's going to end up perfect for him. So what's the point? What's the point of even worrying about anything? And that's a bummer, because otherwise the show is really good, but the ending really killed it for me. And number 1, the absolute worst anime ending from a show that had a lot of potential is My Hime. Oh my god. Okay, the first part of this show isn't amazing or anything, but it is exposition. It's just getting you used to the characters, used to the setting, used to the whole I have a child, I have a god beast kind of summoning magic ability. You know, cool stuff like that. And then the second part of the show comes where it is a total battle royale, and it becomes very dark and very Madoka-like. That's basically the best way to describe the second half of the show. It basically turns from reasonably teenage shonen anime to basically turning to full-on Madoka, except Madoka did it in like the first 3 episodes. This waited about 14 or so episodes before it started doing this. And it turns into a battle royale where basically, if their child gets slain in battle, then the person most important to them, they die. So it is not good to lose, you know? So it's actually worse than dying yourself, because whoever is the most important to you, they die if your child gets defeated. And it's not necessary for the person to die. They just have to kill the child to win the battle royale matches or whatever. And this makes it tense because none of the characters are necessarily villains, you know? They're not actually like bad people, but they still have to fight against each other. Even best friends have to fight against each other. And it makes the anime really tragic. In fact, at one point, 2 of the characters have the same most important person. So if their child gets defeated, you know, there's no point. There is no victory for them in this battle royale once they get involved in it. And it's tense, it's dark, and it's compelling as hell. And every week I was on the edge of my seat for this. And this anime would be thoroughly recommended by me, but it cannot be. Because why? What happens at the very end of the show? Everyone comes back to life. No explanation. No even questions on why it happens. Just everyone comes back to life. Everyone's partner comes back to life. Everyone who died in battle or whatever, they all come back to life, and they come back with their child. I've seen cop-out endings that do this. This is actually a shonen anime trope, you know, where, all my allies died, but in the final battle they come back. You know, it's happened before. I can name a shonen anime that did it. Reunites. You've probably never heard of that. G Gundam, I think, did it. And even Sailor Moon did it at one point in the first season. Yes, I have watched Sailor Moon before. But here, it's just not a good place to use it. And why did it happen? Why did the same reason the clan ending happen? Because the author went too far. They were like, oh crap, this is going to be a real bummer of an ending, right? Ah, crap, we're going to have to change this. How are we going to change it? Let's just bring everyone back to life. Why? How? I don't know, just bringing everyone back to life. Because that would just be a bummer, you know? This is a show with a bunch of magical girls, you know? It should be happy in the ending. And so they do that, and it ends as perfectly as you can imagine. And it ruins it ruins the whole story. It ruins the show. This is just the absolute worst. This is a show I was into. I was excited every week to watch this show. It's like if Sword Art Online, I know that's more popular now, so I'll just use it as an example. It's like in Sword Art Online, if they woke up after winning and saying, "Oh yeah, no one actually died. That was just trolling bullshit," and that's it, and that's how it ended, and that was the end of the series. That's basically what it's like. I couldn't believe it. I swear, anyone with a freaking pen and paper could have written down a better ending if they spent 2 minutes thinking about it. No matter how bad the ending they thought of, it would be better than this. I guarantee it. I mean, it's just the worst ending ever. So there you go. Top 5 worst anime endings ever. In anime that were really good otherwise, or at least good. You know, I'm sure there's worse endings of anime that were already bad, but who cares about those in the first place? No one, right? Obviously, since I did a top 5 worst anime ending, I'm going to have to do a top 5 best anime ending. That's actually going to be trickier, so I'm going to have to think a while about that. But thanks for watching.